season replays, fantasy drafts, ultimate creative leagues, and what if tournament. It's Coffee Cup Games with the Coach DKM. Hey, this is Coach DK with Coffee Cup Games. Hope you guys are having a good one. We are doing our second installment of the Coach's Corner, where we are discussing the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Strat-O-Matic announced that during opening weekend, which will be on February 17th, they will have the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, and it will include 6 significant contributors to the Strat-O-Matic community over the past 62 years. But Strat-O-Matic did not define what is a significant contributor, so I decided I would define it as those who have improved and increased the company, the community, and the culture of Strat-O-Matic. And with that, I determined there should be 5 categories that I believe Strat-O-Matic should use when determining who should be included in the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. The first are those who are the players. Second are the leagues and the tournaments. Third are the employees of the company. Fourth are celebrities, or those well known in the public eye. And lastly are the pioneers, which I divided up into 2 categories, those who are the influencers and those who are legends and icons. And I concluded that there are 65 potential nominees that I believe deserve consideration for the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. And of those 65 potential nominees, I believe 12 of them are players, 10 of them are leagues and tournaments, 10 of them are employees, 9 are celebrities, and 24 are pioneers. So in this episode, we're going to take those 65 potential nominees, we're going to narrow it down to who I believe are most deserving, and then we're going to take those and we're going to start counting down until ultimately we're going to determine and tell you who I believe is most deserving to be included in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. So who are the finalists and what criteria did I use to determine who would be moving on? Well, let's take a quick look behind the curtain and see what my methodology is to determine who moves on and are listed as finalists. As previously discussed, I believe there are 5 categories that Strat-O-Matic should use when creating their Hall of Fame. I believe all these categories are critical and are very important, and that Strat-O-Matic should consider individuals from all of these categories. But as we're talking about the inaugural class, I do not believe each of these categories are going to have the same weight or the same sense of importance when it comes to who is going to make the Hall of Fame, as well as who I will consider as finalists. So I reorganized these categories and ranked them from least important to most important. I believe the nominees that are going to make the final list should be reflective of these rankings. So when we look at the potential nominees that I listed in the last episode, I believe the percentage of finalists that come from each of these categories should reflect its ranking. So as you can see, leagues and tournaments, only 30% of my potential nominees moved into the finalists, 33% of the celebrities, 38% of the players, 50% of the pioneers, and 70% of the employees that I listed as potential candidates moved on to be considered finalists. So here are my finalists based off of the categories, and I'm going to be listing the categories based on the least important up to the most important. All the finalists will be listed in alphabetical order. The first category is leagues and tournaments. There are 3 finalists in this category, even though I believe this is the least likely to have representation in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. First is the ECBA, the East Coast Baseball Association. It started in 1974 and is still in existence today. Second is GUSMO, the Greater United States Strat-O-Matic Organization, which started in 1971, still in existence today, and is the longest running league in Strat-O-Matic history. And last is the TBA, the Table Baseball Association, which existed from 1986 to 1995, and it was the first major tournament that was held by the Strat-O-Matic community. The next category is the celebrities, where we have 3 finalists. First is Bob Costas. Second is Keith Hernandez. And finally, it is John Miller. There are 5 finalists under the category The Players. First is the Strat-O-Matic Ultimate Fanatic winner and the Guinness record holder for most consecutive hours playing, Brett Caro. Second is Jeff Fleischman, who is the commissioner of the Gussimo League. Third is Larry Fryer. He is the ECBA commissioner and has probably one of the most extensive Strat-O-Matic collections in the Strat-O-Matic community. Fourth is Pete Nelson. He is a 4-time major tournament winner, the most in Strat-O-Matic history, as well as the founder of the Star Tournaments and the Strat TPC. And last is Bill Sindelar. He was the very first customer in Strat-O-Matic history. The fourth category is the Pioneers. We believe this has the second most likely chance to have representation in the Strat-O-Matic community. Under Pioneers, there are two subcategories. The first one is the Influencers, and we have 5 finalists who are writers, publishers, podcasters, YouTubers, and streamers. First is Glenn Guzzo. He wrote the Strat-O-Matic Fanatics book. He also was the host of the talk show and published the Strat Fan newsletter. Second is Del Newell. He was the publisher of the Strat-O-Matic Review, as well as being one of the original leaders of the National Strat-O-Matic Convention in its early days. Third is Rick Wolfman Shapiro. He was the publisher and creator for the Ultimate Strat Baseball newsletter. Fourth is Mark Wasserman. He also was a publisher of the Ultimate Strat Baseball newsletter, as well as the creator of the YouTube channel under its same name, and he's also the CBA League Commissioner. And finally is Bob Zolke. He's a YouTube creator under the channel Sportsman Z. Not only was he one of the Ultimate Fanatic finalists, he also has more Strat-O-Matic videos on YouTube than any other creator. Still remaining under the category of the Pioneers, let's talk about the 7 finalists that I classify as legends and icons. First is Gary Altman. He is the creator of 2 popular websites used by the Strat-O-Matic community, the Strat-O-Matic World, as well as Gary's Ballpark page. Second is Larry Browse. He was the founder of the TBA. Third is Bruce Bundy. He's been a popular contributor to many of the Strat-O-Matic publications and has quite the reputation for his homemade card formulas. Fourth is John LaMotta. He is the creator and the publisher of LaMotta's Baseball Bulletin, which has been a draft rating projection guide for over 38 years. Number 5 is Dan Patterson. He founded the Strat Fan Forum, which he created in 2001 during the early years of the internet and was the main go-to place by the Strat-O-Matic community. 6 is Chris Rosen. He is the founder and the manager of the Moonlight Grams Marketplace, which is where most in the Strat-O-Matic community will go to find hard-to-find cards as well as out-of-print seasons. And finally is Tom Swank, lovingly known as the Missionary. He was a passionate gamer and brought the Strat-O-Matic community together through many of his tournaments, as well as being a very respected ambassador of the game. And the last category is also what I believe is the most important category when we consider the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, and that is the employees, where we have 7 finalists. Number 1 is Warren Bannerman. He was a computer programmer who helped automate the cards for the advanced game, including the lefty and righty splits. Number 2 is Steve Barkham. He was there for 4.5 decades at Strat-O-Matic, and I believe he is the longest tenured employee in its history. Third is Rita Larnadis. She was at the company from 1981 to 2005. She was part of the customer service and shipping department and helped many customers get their orders. Fourth is Hal Richmond. He is the creator and the founder, designer, and developer of the Strat-O-Matic game, its cards, and the company. Next is James Williams, sometimes within the organization called James Leon Williams. He was a sales manager and an executive, worked there for 45 years, and was the second employee Hal Richmond ever hired. Sixth on the list is Pauline Williams. I'm not sure if that is her last name. I just always see her as Pauline, but she was the very first employee Hal Richmond ever hired in 1961. She is also the mother of James Leon Williams, the second employee. And finally, it's Linda Yonk. She worked at the company from 1971 to 1989. She was a secretary, phone operator, and worked in customer service. She probably talked to more Strat-O-Matic customers than any other employee in its 62-year history. An individual that I need to make sure to mention that I left off the list of finalists is Bob Winberry. He is an employee currently of the Strat-O-Matic company. He's been there for over 3 decades, and in my opinion, he is one of the most deserving individuals of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, and upon his retirement, I believe he should be and will be immediately entered into the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. So there are all the finalists for the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to rank them starting at number 25 and working our way down to the final 6 and who I believe will be in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Now, before we jump into that top 25, I do want to point out that I believe there are 3 individuals who will not be included in the Hall of Fame. I believe these individuals are very, if not most deserving for the inaugural class, but I again do not believe they will be included. Number 3 is Bob Winberry. When I make my personal top 5, Bob Winberry is always on the list. I believe the only reason, and understandably so, he is not going to be included in the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame is because he is still currently working for the company, which he has done for over 35 years. I do believe, as I mentioned earlier, that there is no individual who is probably more deserving who is currently working for the company. I believe upon his retirement, he will be and should be immediately included into the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Number 2 is Glenn Guzzo. I do not believe there is any individual who has not worked directly for the company who is more deserving of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame than Glenn Guzzo. He has written a book about the company and its history. He has written articles, published newsletters, he's had talk shows, he's been on podcasts, he's done interviews throughout the history of Strat-O-Matic, helping to support not only the company but also the community and its culture. But I do not believe Glenn Guzzo will be included in the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. And the reason is pretty simple. I believe he is a historian. I believe his opinion and knowledge is very valued by those working for the company, especially Hal Richman. I believe because of that, he's been included as part of the selection committee for deciding who will be in that inaugural class. And by doing that, I believe by default, he has chosen to remove himself for consideration. But I will mention, I do not believe there is any individual more deserving who has not worked for the company directly to be in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame than Glenn Guzzo. And lastly is the creator and the founder of the game and the company, the man himself, Hal Richman. Hal Richman, I believe, is still very involved in the company as well as many of its decisions. I believe when it comes to the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, this is something that is very important to Hal Richman and that he wants to be able to celebrate others rather than himself. Even though there is unquestionably nobody who should be included more than Hal Richman, I believe out of humility, Hal Richman will not allow himself to be included in the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, which I believe is absolutely sad. There is no one more deserving and no one that we as the community would want to celebrate more than Hal Richman. So now let's rank the 25 individuals who I believe will be considered and ultimately included in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Number 25, Bill Sindelar, the very first Strat-O-Matic customer in his 62-year history. I have Bill Sindelar ranked pretty low simply because I consider this a nostalgic finalist and how I define what is a significant contributor. I believe there are others who are more deserving based on their impact and influence on the Strat-O-Matic company, its community, and its culture. But I want to recognize that Hal Richman and those affiliated with the organization and the company itself as a business may value him very high and deservingly so. But I'm trying to be true to who I am and what I believe, and therefore I am ranking him low. And so, Bill, if you are ranked much higher, I apologize. It's just based off of my criteria and my definition. Number 24, John Miller is the first celebrity on the list. He is part of the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association Hall of Fame, and he is an avid Strat-O-Matic baseball player. Number 23, Gary Altman. He is the creator of both the Strat-O-Matic World and Gary's Ballpark page. Number 22, Brett Caro or Caro. I'm not sure how to say his last name, Brett. I apologize for butchering your name in these videos. Brett was the Strat-O-Matic Ultimate Fanatic first place winner at the 50th year celebration of the company. He's also the Guinness World Record holder for most consecutive hours played, and he has probably played over 20,000 games. Number 21. Bob Costas, the famous NBC sports broadcaster, has been a loyal fan and supporter of the game and has been featured in various Strat-O-Matic publications and in the Strat-O-Matic documentary. Number 20. Mark Wasserman. He is one of the publishers of the Ultimate Strat Baseball newsletter. He also is the creator of the YouTube channel under the same name, and he is a CBA commissioner. Number 19. Rita Larnadis, who worked for 25 years for the Strat-O-Matic company between 1981 and 2005 and worked in the customer service and the shipping department. Number 18. This is a unique one. I believe there are two options for this slot. I believe it could either be the TBA, the Table Baseball Association, which was the first major Strat-O-Matic tournament in its history, or it could be its founder, Larry Brous. I personally decided I believe the best pick for this one would be the TBA. It was the first major tournament in the history of Strat-O-Matic, but the reason I don't have it ranked any higher is because it only lasted and existed for 10 years. Number 17. Dan Patterson, the founder of the Strat Fan Forum, which he created in 2001. This was the go-to place in the early years of the internet for the Strat-O-Matic community to ask questions, have discussions, and meet others in the community in a virtual setting. Number 16. Keith Hernandez is the top celebrity in the list, and understandably and deservingly so. He has done more than any other individual to promote Strat-O-Matic than anyone else in the public eye. He has probably given millions of dollars of free endorsement, as well as being an avid supporter and passionate player. He is so well known for his love for the company and the game that during his New York Mets Hall of Fame induction, they actually presented him with a mosaic which included Strat-O-Matic cards as part of the mosaic. There was a big part of me that wanted to move him much higher, but because of how I value and I rank other individuals who are players, who are pioneers, influencers, legends, and icons, as well as the employees, unfortunately, Keith Hernandez was ranked a little bit lower than probably he should be. But regardless, he is deserving of being the top celebrity on the list. Number 15. And here is another 2-for-1, but this one I believe is more difficult than the TBA and Larry Brous. This is between the ECBA, the East Coast Baseball Association, which has been in existence since 1974 and is about to enter into its 50th year of existence, or the ECBA Commissioner, Larry Fryer, who is also the Strat-O-Matic Ultimate Fanatic second place winner at the 50th year anniversary, and who has a collection that is so well known and extensive that Strat-O-Matic actually used it for its historical archives. So, of the two, who did I decide to pick? Was it the East Coast Baseball Association, the league, or its commissioner, Larry Fryer? Well, in this case, I decided to go with Larry Fryer. The reason I decided to go with Larry Fryer is because I believe he checks all three boxes of what I define and describe as a significant contributor. I believe he has helped the company through his extensive Strat-O-Matic collection that he has allowed the company to borrow at different times. I also believe he has helped to improve and increase the community and its culture by being the commissioner of a league that is going into its 50th year existence, as well as being the second place winner in the Ultimate Fanatic Strat-O-Matic contest. But if we were talking a year from now, I might have a different pick. The ECBA would have completed its 50th year, and that means it would have been in existence for a half a century. But since we're only in its 49th year, and I do believe Larry Fryer is very deserving, and probably more deserving currently than the ECBA, I'm going to stick with Larry Fryer. But to be clear, I believe the ECBA deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I believe it is my second pick when it comes to the most deserving when we talk about leagues and tournaments. Number 14. Bob Zuhlke, the creator of the YouTube channel Sportsman Z. Not only was he the fourth place winner at the 50th anniversary of the Ultimate Fanatic contest, he also has a YouTube channel that has 1,600 subscribers. He's put out over 400 Strat-O-Matic videos, which I believe is the most by any other YouTube creator. And his videos have been viewed 250,000. That's right, 250,000 times. I believe Bob Zuhlke is the most influential YouTuber out there when it comes to Strat-O-Matic, and I believe he's in the top 5 when it comes to increasing and improving the community and the culture of Strat-O-Matic. The only reason I believe Bob Zolke is not rated higher by Strat-O-Matic when it comes to the inaugural class is because YouTube is a more recent format. Even though I do believe Bob Zolke is probably the most deserving YouTuber, and I do believe he is very deserving of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, I believe because of the format that he is using, YouTube is not going to be rated as high as some of the others on the list. Number 13. Chris Rosen is the owner, founder, and manager of the Moonlight Grams Marketplace. This is the place where many in the Strat-O-Matic community go to find out-of-print seasons, hard-to-find cards, as well as many other items when it comes to improving and enhancing their gaming experience. Because of the amount of individuals who have visited and purchased items at a very reasonable price from Moonlight Grams Marketplace, I do believe Chris Rosen is very deserving to be included in the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Number 12. John LaMotta, who is the creator of the LaMotta's Baseball Bulletin. This is a draft rating projection guide used by many leagues and many players in those leagues and has been used by those in the Strat-O-Matic community for almost 4 decades. Number 11. Linda Yonk worked from the company from 1971 to 1989. Even though she may not have worked there as long as many other people, she still did almost work there for 2 complete decades. She was a secretary and phone operator, and she probably talked to more customers than any other employee in the history of Strat-O-Matic. Number 10. Pete Nelson could be considered as a pioneer or as a player. As a pioneer, he was the founder of the Star tournaments as well as the Strat TPC tournaments. These 2 tournaments are 2 of the 3 major tournaments that have existed throughout the 62-year history of Strat-O-Matic. That alone makes him one of the top candidates when it comes to the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. But personally, I think Pete Nelson is even more deserving when it comes to acknowledging him as a player. In those major tournaments that have happened throughout the history of Strat-O-Matic, he has won it 4 times, more than any other player in the history of those tournaments. In my opinion, Pete Nelson is not only the best player in the Strat-O-Matic history, I also believe he has been instrumental in helping to build the community as well as the culture of Strat-O-Matic. Number 9. Warren Bannerman is the computer manager who made the baseball advanced game a reality. Prior to that, Hal Richmond did all the calculations and only was able to do it for all the players of the basic game. But hoping to improve the game, they decided to come out with an advanced game which would include lefty and righty splits. This was obviously too much for one person, so they decided to take the formulas and put them into a computer, hoping that they would be able to automate these cards based off of the statistics and the formulas that Strat-O-Matic uses. Hence where Warren Bannerman came in. Not only was Warren Bannerman able to figure out how to do it on a computer, he was also able to add other features that are now still included in the advanced baseball game. Number 8. Bruce Bundy is a personal favorite. Maybe I'm ranking him too high, but personally I still believe it is warranted. Bruce Bundy, along with Bob Zolke and Glenn Guzzo, are 3 of the most instrumental and influential people for me when it comes to the Strat-O-Matic world. Bruce Bundy has been a contributor in many of the publications throughout the Strat-O-Matic history, as well as written many articles on his homemade formulas. He is still being interviewed when it comes to podcasts as well as YouTube videos. In my opinion, Bruce Bundy is one of the most influential people when it comes to increasing the community and the culture of the Strat-O-Matic community. And therefore, I believe he is one of the most deserving people to be included in the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Number 7. This is another and our last 2 for 1. You could either go with Jeff Fleischman, who is the Strat-O-Matic Ultimate Fanatic 3rd place winner at the 50th year anniversary, who is also the commissioner of Gusimo, the longest continuous running league, which is now in existence for 53 years. Or you could actually go with the league, Gusimo, the Greater United States Strat-O-Matic Organization, which has been in existence since 1971 and is still in existence today, entering its 53rd year. And in this case, I decided to go with the league itself, Gusimo. I believe the fact that it's been in existence since 1971 just warrants the fact that there have been so many players who've been committed to this league to keep it going and being strong even up to today. I believe Jeff Fleischman would not have any issues at all when it comes to bringing in the Gusimo League into the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. But I also want to point out that I do believe Jeff Fleischman should be also considered and should eventually get his own induction, as he has been the commissioner of the league since his first year in existence. That's right, he has been the commissioner of Gusimo for 52 years and counting. We have now covered numbers 25 through number 7. So let's just do a real quick recap of all the individuals that I have listed as finalists in order. Number 25, Bill Sindelar. Number 24, John Miller. Number 23, Gary Altman. Number 22, Brett Carreau. Number 21, Bob Costas. Number 20, Mark Wasserman. Number 19, Rita Larnadis. Number 18, the TBA, Table Baseball Association, which we picked over its founder, Larry Brous. Number 17, Dan Patterson. Number 16, Keith Hernandez. Number 15, Larry Fryer, which we picked over the league, the ECBA, the East Coast Baseball Association. Number 14, Bob Zulke. Number 13, Chris Rosen. Number 12, John LaMotta. Number 11, Linda Yonk. Number 10, Pete Nelson. Number 9, Warren Bannerman. Number 8, Bruce Bundy. And number 7, we picked the Gusamo League, the Greater United States Strat-O-Matic organization, over its commissioner, Jeff Fleischman. So there is numbers 25 through number 7, but ultimately, who do you think are the final 6 individuals that I believe are most deserving to be included in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame? And now finally, who I believe will be included in the inaugural class of the 2023 Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Number 6. Ranked number 6 on my list, and the first that I'm going to include in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame is Rick Wolfman Shapiro. In the 62-year history, there have been 3 major publishings or newsletters that have been put out. Number 2 was Glenn Guzzo's Strat Fan Newsletter, and then the final one was the Ultimate Strat Baseball Newsletter by Wolfman Shapiro and Mark Wasserman. Wolfman Shapiro was the primary content creator, as well as being the one who did the majority of the interviews. Not only did Wolfman Shapiro participate and create the Ultimate Strat Baseball Newsletter, but he was also gained a lot of notoriety and became quite infamous for his Battle of the Sexes contest that he had at the 1973 Strat-O-Matic convention against Donna Chivrette. In my opinion, Rick Wolfman Shapiro should be one of the people included in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. Number 5. Number 5 is probably the most famous player and most passionate player, as well as a legend and icon pioneer, and that is Tom Swank. He has gotten the beloved name The Missionary, and before he passed away a few years ago, he was notorious for his various types of tournaments that he created, trying to always bring the community together, as well as build a culture that we all love today. There was probably no one greater or more respected as an ambassador of the company, building its community as well as embracing its culture, than Tom Swank. Number 4. Number 4 is Del Knoll. When I was talking about Wolfman Shapiro, I mentioned that there were 3 major publishings or newsletter that went out throughout the 62-year history of Strat-O-Matic. The first was the Strat-O-Matic Review that was done by Del Knoll, his brother Warren, his wife, as well as a couple other family members. Del Knoll was a sports writer, and he decided to reach out to Hal Richman in 1971 and start putting out a newsletter for the company. It brought the community together before the years of the internet. It lasted for almost 20 years and was quite a popular feature for many of those coming together in the Strat-O-Matic community. Not only that, but Del Knoll was an instrumental leader during the Strat-O-Matic conventions of the 1970s. There is no one, in my opinion, who has done more during its early years to bring together the Strat-O-Matic community and helping to support and embrace the culture of Strat-O-Matic. Number 3. Number 3 is Pauline Williams. I believe that is her last name, but it may not be. Pauline was the first employee that Hal Richman ever hired. Pauline had 2 sons, James and Jimmy. James worked for the company for 40 plus years and was his second employee. Pauline was quite loyal and committed and devoted to the company and to Hal Richman, and someone that Hal Richman always spoke extremely high of. If there is someone who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, it would definitely be Pauline. Number 2. When it comes down to the last two individuals, I believe you could pick either one at number 2 and either one at number 1. So for me, I'm going to pick Steve Barkum at number 2. He worked for the company for over 4 decades, almost 5 decades. He was one of the most instrumental and influential people when it came to the Strat-O-Matic game. He was part of the research and development team, and he focused a lot of his expertise on the past seasons. He was completely committed and very, very loyal to the company and to Hal Richmond. Anyone who's got opportunities to communicate with Steve Barkum has always been impressed with his love and his passion for the company. In my opinion, there is probably very few people who are more deserving and more worthy to get in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame than Steve Barkum. Number 1. And my number 1 pick for the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame is James Williams, better known in the company as James Leon Williams. He was the second employee of the company. He was the son of Pauline. He worked for the company for 45 years. He started off as a sales manager and eventually became an executive. Not only was he instrumental in all the games, baseball, basketball, and football, he was also somebody that Hal Richmond considered a very dear friend. James Williams never said a bad word, had the most amazing attitude, was extremely humble, and was somebody that was committed and loyal to the company as well as its fans. I believe if there is one person who must be included in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame, it is James Williams. Well, there you go. My final 6, my inaugural class for the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. I had James Williams, Steve Barkum, Pauline Williams, Del Newell, Tom Swank, and Wolfman Shapiro. Do you agree with my categories that I had? Do you agree in the rankings of those categories? Do you agree in the rankings of the finalists as I had them ranked from number 25 all the way down to number 1? And ultimately, do you believe I got the top 6 right, or would you have put somebody else in the top 6? Eventually, we're going to find out how well I did. Was I close, or did I completely miss the mark? Obviously, I know we're going to find out in the near future when Strat-O-Matic announces who will be in the inaugural class of the Strat-O-Matic Hall of Fame. I hope you enjoyed this journey down memory lane, learning a little bit more about the individuals, the leagues, and the tournaments, as well as those who were most instrumental in helping us have this wonderful game, the beloved community, and the amazing culture that we have in the Strat-O-Matic world. So until next time, this is Coach DK. Have a good one. Bye.